All right, let's quickly review. Derive the following. How do I derive this? So y prime in this case would be equals to the derivative of the first one, that's 4x to the power of 3. The derivative of the second would be negative 6x. The derivative of this would be the negative 5, and the derivative of the 6 is nothing. That's it. Now, if we look at number 2, this is 3x multiplied by a bracket that has two terms. We could go for the product rule, but it would be longer than expected. In this case, it would be better to just distribute عشان هي one term multiplied by two terms. So this is just rewriting the question. It will become 3x to the power of 2 plus 12x. And now then I can find y prime, which will become 6x plus 12. And that would be the derivative. But if we look at number 3, this is a product rule, clearly. Two functions multiplied by each other. So then y prime will apply the product rule if we call this one a and we call this one b. It should be the derivative of the first one, 12x to the power of 2 minus 2. That is a prime. Times the second one as it is, 3x squared minus 6. That's b. Plus the first one as it is, 4x to the power of 3 minus 2x. That's a. Multiplied by the derivative of the second, which will become 6x. That's b prime. That's it. We go for number 4. Number 4 is clearly a quotient rule. In this case, f prime of x will be equals to the derivative of the first one, which will become 9x squared, times the second one as it is, x to the power of 4 minus 2x. And now minus the first one as it is, 3x power 3 minus 2, multiplied by the derivative of the second, which will become 4x power 3 minus 2. All of this is then divided by the second one squared. Just to give them the letters, if we call this one a and we call this one b, this is a prime b minus a b prime over b squared. It says here, find the equation of the tangent to this function at x equals 1. In this case, we'll have to first find the derivative of y. In this case, it would be a quotient rule, the derivative of the first one, times the second one as it is, minus the first one as it is, times the derivative of the second. All of this is divided by the second one squared. And now I'm supposed to substitute the x into the derivative to find the slope and into the original to find the y value. Let's substitute into the derivative. I'll put 2 on a calculator times 1. And then 1 minus 2 minus 1 to the power of 2 plus 4 multiplied by 1 and all over 1 minus 2 all to the power of 2. And the answer would be negative 7. Negative 7 is the slope. Now, if we multiplied the 1 into the original, 1 to the power of 2 plus 4 over 1 minus 2, that would get you negative 5. Negative 5 is the y value. Because we have the y and the slope, we'll substitute into the equation y equals mx plus b. Instead of the y, I'll substitute the y that I've calculated. Instead of the m, I'll substitute this the m that I've calculated. And instead of the x, I'll put the one that was given, and I'll be missing the b. I'll multiply the negative 7 times 1 and move it to the other side, which will give me b equals to positive 2. Once I have the b, I'll write the equation as y equals negative 7x plus the 2. This is your final answer. This is the equation of the tangent. Now to go for number 6. Number 6, here's a function. You're asked to find f prime. but this function is a bracket with a power, so the chain rule definitely will be applied. F prime of x now will be equals to, I'll multiply the 5 at the beginning, 5. I'll open up the bracket and I'll write the bracket as it is. And I'll subtract 1 from the power. Then I'll multiply by the derivative of what's inside, which will be 12x to the power of 3 minus 2. Finally, I'll just simplify this and multiply the 5 along with this bracket only. 5 multiplied by the 12, that's 60, x to the power of 3. 5 multiplied by the negative 2, that's negative 10. And this bracket will be put as it is next to it, with its power. This will be your final answer. Number 7. This is a question where you're asked to find f prime of 2, and that's a bracket with a power, so the chain rule will be applied. I'll put the power at the beginning. I'll put the bracket as it is. And I'll subtract 1 from the power. Then I'll multiply by the derivative of what's inside. Now, what's inside is already a quotient rule, which means this is A and this is B, and I'll have to apply it as the derivative of the first one, which is 2x, times the second one as it is, x to the power of 3 plus 2x, minus the first one as it is, x squared minus 4, times the derivative of the second, 3x squared plus 2. All of this is then divided by the second one to the power of 2. Close the bracket. Now, they need me to find f prime of 2, which means I'll substitute 2 instead of every single x over here. On a calculator, and I'll find the answer. All right, so the answer of this one will be a 0. Now moving on to number 6. This is the kind of a word problem. No matter what's the context of the question, but it somehow says that the price is increasing by $2 every year, and it's increasing. So this means that the P prime, the price is equals to 2. And then it sells for $10, which means that just the P is equals to 10. The quantity is 1,000, so the Q is, 150. And it decreases by 10 every year, which means that the Q prime, the rate of change of the quantity, is negative 10 because it's decreasing. They're asking me to find the rate of change of the revenue. The equation states that the revenue is supposed to be equals to the price times the quantity, which then means that the R prime, the rate of change of the revenue, is equals to the derivative of P prime multiplied by Q plus P as it is and then Q prime. If we substituted what we have into the function, now R prime will be equals to, instead of P prime, I'll substitute the 2. Instead of the Q, I'll put the 150 plus the P, which is 10, and instead of the Q prime, negative 10. All of that on a calculator would give me the rate of change of the revenue. The answer would be positive 200. So it's an increasing revenue. Now let's discuss some of the limits questions. This one says limit as x approaches 2, and you're given the function. The first thing you'll try in any limits question is to substitute. Substitute the 2 right away. The answer will be 0. If you're given an answer, that's the answer. خلاص, done. On the other hand, if we here substituted the x with 4, the answer would be 0 over 0. Therefore, we'll start factorizing. Because this one has x squared, we can factorize with a calculator, mod 53, and put the numbers with the opposite signs in brackets. So that would get me x minus 4 and and x minus 2. All of this is still divided by the x minus 4 because these are the same. I can cross them out, and once you cross things out up and down, you then substitute the x again with 4, and 4 minus 2 will give you the answer as 2. Number 9, because here there is a root, that's what we call the rationalization function. Sorry, the rationalization type, where we multiply first by the same exact part that has the root, but its actual conjugate. And then for the numerator, normal parts that are the same, we're going to put this one to the power of 2, which will give me just x minus 6. And then this one to the power of 2, which will get me a 4. And it's always minus in between. For the denominators, the parts that are not the same, we just put them in brackets next to each other. If we simplified and added the like terms, that would get me x minus 10 over x minus 10 multiplied by root x minus 6 plus 2. The x minus 10 and the x minus 10 will cross each other. I'm now left with 1 over the root x minus 6 plus 2. Because I've crossed things out, I can now substitute the x with 10. So that's 1 over root 10 minus 6 plus 2, which would get me 1 over 4 as the final answer. For these 3 questions, they're about the infinity, and whenever x is approaching infinity, we basically check the powers. Because the power here is bigger than the power there, the numerator is bigger than the denominator, the answer of this one will be either infinity or DNE. They both will be correct. But because in number 11, for example, both powers are equal to each other, we're going to divide the coefficient by the coefficient, and the answer will be 3 over 2. In number 12, for example, the power of the denominator is bigger than the numerator, and in this case, the answer is 0. And these are the 3 possible cases of the infinity. Finally, limits by graphing. For example, this first question, you're asked limit as x approaches -1. You're going to check at x approaches -1 from the right side. So as we're moving along this line, the first entrance to the right is at y equals 1. But as we move along the same line and we check the first entrance to the left, it's at y equals 3. Because the right and the left side are not equals to each other, therefore the answer of this DNE. But if we check an example like number 2, if x was approaching 2, actually let's change that to make it x approaches -2. When x was approaching -2, if you move along the line of the -2, the first entrance to the right would be here, which makes the value at 1. While the first entrance, برضو, if you're moving along the same line to the left, would be at the same value, 1. Because the right and the left side are exactly the same, then the answer here is the +1. I hope that makes sense, and I hope it's helpful.